Welcome to Design System London number 15. My name is Louise. I'm going to be your host this evening. Have you been to Design System London before? Put your hand up. Fabulous. Yes. For those of you who have, sorry, you've heard this spiel. For the rest of you, I'm Louise. I'm the host of Design System London. We are a meetup event, a community based here in London, hence the name. We have been very fortunate. We went on an adventure and went to Paris, which was super exciting. London Design System Paris. I think that we should go to other places, so keep your eyes open. We'll see what happens in the future. Our goal is basically to create a space for people to talk about design systems. Whether you are a first-time speaker, whether you are an experienced speaker, whether you know what you're talking about, or whether you just have an opinion, you are equally welcome. If you look at this today and you say, I want to be on that stage, I want to share what my team is doing, or then absolutely, you are very welcome. There is a form for you to fill out later to apply. But ultimately, as I said, we welcome people. And if you feel this is an amazing space, but I'll tell you what space is even better, where I'm working, then you can also become a sponsor. And then talk to us about that as well. Yeah, don't worry. I'll always do this plug and always will. So we are going to have a quick look at this evening's agenda. We got 3 fantastic talks. Architecting the Experience Operating System. It's a good one. 2 worlds, 1 system, and keeping our sanity. Wow, that title is it's giving. And then we take a quick break, and during that break, we have some fantastic company over in this corner, which you may have seen, who are authors of a book. They made it for the rest of you in this room. That's the ambition right there. You should go and speak to them. Fantastic. And then after that, we come back, and we're going to talk about the tokenization revolution. I knew the revolution would come eventually. Didn't know it was going to be tokens, but I'm here for it. And then we're going to have a Q&A at the end with all the speakers. So if you have a question, there will be a slide on for you to just put your question is, or if you're brave enough, we have a microphone here, which I have been told we can throw at you. We're going to try to be gentle. If this is a serious moment, if you've got a pacemaker, do not go near that. So I have now given that warning. We are not going to throw it at you. We will give it to you. Okay, so... And then after that, we'll do some thank yous. And obviously, we got a post social. So if you don't feel like you're socializing, networking enough, you tag along and then you network some more. I should also talk a little bit about code of conduct, because obviously we need to be kind to each other. So keep your language nice, especially if you're socializing on the internet as well, which you should be doing, because that's how people know you exist and that this event is happening, because you have to tell everyone. Please do, because we want people to know about it. So you can do this in the slide, the Q&A, as I said before, the Slido. But if you are mentioning on social media, we have a fantastic hashtag. It's Design System London. It's nice and short and easy to remember. So please use that. You find it mainly on LinkedIn these days. And we also, now you're thinking like, oh, God, there's so much information. How am I going to remember all of that? Don't worry, we got it covered. We got a QR code. So if you get your phones out, 2 people, I'll see you too, and I remember you too. Thanks for the support. Over here, small people. In this form, you find everything you need. You can follow us, you can ask questions, you can find out all openings. And also if you have been to Design System London before and you remember a talk that was fantastic, you will find it here. And if you haven't been and now are excited about all those fantastic talks you didn't see, this is the link to the YouTube channel. So that's going to keep you occupied. So I think that's the initial chat. So for those of you who have been before, you can now come back in the room and pay attention, because I've said what I usually say. I am actually going to ask a little bit. So we did a few people I've been to before. Did anyone go to Paris by any chance? Just by? Nobody here went to Paris? Okay, next time we go abroad, get a gang together, make a thing out of it, and go. Have you been to any of the conferences, perhaps? This was a long time ago. Yeah, we got some nods over here. Conference at the back. Love that. Any other conference? Yes. Oh, God, look at this. That's dedication. It's been around for a long time. 2018, 2017. That's a long time. Anyone remember the online ones? No, do you know what? Barely, nor do I. But they are great. The talks were good, I tell you that much. And they are also on YouTube. Okay, so before we get going and starting, we're going to hear a couple of quick words from our fantastic sponsors. I'm realizing now that I'm going to have to get a microphone ready. We are sponsored or organized by YLD. And we also sponsored by the fantastic Lloyds, which obviously we're here today. But first, I would like to welcome Rebecca from YLD onto the stage.
I'm a client partner at YLD. Before we get started, here's a quick intro into who we are and what matters to us. YLD turn digital investments into real results by building what matters, delivering with impact, and making sure it lasts. Using AI where it accelerates value. With design at the core, we bring clarity, put users first, and build solutions that last. We've been around for over a decade now, and community has always been central to how we grow and create impact. We've been part of the design system movement since launching in London in 2027, as Luis mentioned, partnering with tech, design, and product leaders to create and scale systems that solve real org challenges. We work globally across publishing, healthcare, fintech, renewable energy, and more, and we're continuing to grow. Our goal is simple: to leave every client in a better place than we found them by sharing our expertise and building future-ready capabilities. If you'd like to learn more about us, our work, open roles, upcoming community events, come and chat to me, Luis, or anyone with a YLD t-shirt. Thank you. Enjoy the talk.
Our sponsor this evening, the location that we are Lloyds, as I said before. I would love to welcome, I believe you, Wish, are going to say some words.
Hi everyone, welcome to Lloyds. I know what you're thinking. I thought this was Vish and Kish, but this is just Vish. Nothing's happened, we're still friends. He's going to be speaking in a little bit. But what I wanted to say, just a couple of things. I think for me, this event or any of the events that we are always at together, whether it's this one or other design system events, that is where I feel when we come together, it's such an important thing because I think we're all working in different organizations. We're not, on that kind of product level, maybe we're competing, they've got competition there. But when you're working in design systems, we're all facing the same battles. We're all working on the same stuff. And it's events like this where we really get to share and connect and build this kind of internal culture that we have in design systems. And I think that's just really important. So for me, coming to these events is a highlight of our year and our calendar, like the events that they're held. And I think hosting is really important for us to share kind of our journey, what we're working on, and share that back to you. I think for many of you who know or don't know, I'm a yoga teacher. And I think part of that work I do outside of Lloyds as a yoga teacher is when I'm teaching a class is to be of service to the students who are in the class. And I very much see the work that we do is that same way, whether it's the consumers of the design system, whether it's the end customers, really, like when you get down to the core foundation, we're the ones who are providing that service and doing that work. So, yeah, I think for me, when we get together, it really feels like I'm with my tribe and with my people. I think especially growing up, if you're a designer or into design systems, you're kind of like semi-creative, but semi like really nerdy at the same time. And I think really you grow up feeling quite isolated, like maybe a bit of an in-betweener. But when you get into a room with a group like this and you start connecting, you really feel like you're at home, you're with your people. So yeah, that is what I want to say. We're in it together. I'm glad to be hosting today, and I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see all of you. So I hope you enjoy the talks, and thank you so much. There was a shout out that you just did, but I'll do it again. Meaning about together, which is the other bit on how we work at Lloyds is we work through our crafts and disciplines. So visual design, content design, UX design, service design, and design research. And I think in teams and delivery teams and platform teams, we always have one of each discipline and craft working in there, and we really strive to work together. So that's kind of part of my theme of working together, Here we have an example of, as you mentioned, Varshi and Georgina over there in the corner with their book that have just released with Ross as well, who's not here, he's on his honeymoon. But they have co-written a book, and I worked with them on the cover design of this book. So I think it's just an example. I wanted to give a shout out to them and their work, but an example of how the work that we do together at Lloyds even goes beyond, you know, when I think about that tribe and friendship and that culture that we gain, we're supporting each other even outside of work. So I just wanted to share that work that they've done. Go and chat to them in the break. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Are you all feeling ready? You better be, because it's happening. I love that. So we are going to kick off with architecting the experience operating system. So we had Vish and no Kish. Now we're going to have Kish and no Vish. Welcome to the stage.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about architecting the experience operating system. I'm going to start off with saying I'm not going to be petitioning the rename of Design System London to, you know, Operating System London. And there's a very good reason for that. But that's what this talk is about. So, brief intro to myself. I'm Kish. I'm a design system manager here at Lloyds. And I work with an amazing team within the Kocan squad covering web and native mobile. Many of you know me and Vish from Config, but as well as other talks that we've done in the past year. But a bit of a background intro to some of the things I'm really into. Very much into chess and won a competition for the county. I love languages and have self-taught in Gujarati, Hindi, and I dabble in Sanskrit. And I love Lego. As all design system geeks might be into, we really love Lego. And I'll probably be showing off a few of my personal things, but we all look at Lego as an analogy to say, this is how we can construct something, and then, you know, we can turn it into a multi-product solution. And then when it comes to something really big, we think, actually, we're going to use the same pattern again and again. But when you reach a certain scale, it's so big, it's just beyond what we're just talking about is patterns. And that's what I really want to talk about today is the collaboration of design systems and operating systems. So at Config, we covered the actual rebrand story. But here I want to kind of pick up from where we left off from the rebrand and kind of tell the story of where we are here today. From the rebrand, we had one narrative. Yep. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Can you all hear me? Oh, that's loud. Okay. Right. Do I need to start again? No. Okay. So the rebrand gave us one narrative, fewer competing priorities. It gave us clear ownership because it was program-led, no resourcing issues, you know, on the down low. There was a clear strategy where we wanted a clear migration without any chaos. And the outcome of that was we were able to prove a design system is critical infrastructure for an organization. The rebrand gave us a runaway. The question is what happens when the runaway ends? And at Config, that's where we announced Kocan OS, our brand experience operating system. But I'm going to sort of take a pause and try to answer the question, what is the difference between a design system and a operating system? I'm going to use this analogy. So it'd be really great to get a few hands up to see what do you see first. So how many see a duck? Awesome. How many see a rabbit? Very few. Okay, cool. That is, as an analogy, how we work with sort of the business, right? we all talk about design systems, and one of the biggest problems with that is we fail to actually explain what is a design system to senior stakeholders. And now if you throw in another term in there, which is operating system, what the hell does that mean? No one has a clue. Everyone is saying this is an operating system, it's Concora, it's a design system. And here I'm just going to maybe ruffle a few feathers and try to define these. And that's the main objective here. It is not whether you see the duck or the rabbit. The goal as a team for a design system team is we just want everyone to see and agree that we are seeing either the duck or the rabbit. So a design system is a shared language for how things look and behave across products based on a collection of rules and reusable parts. This can look like having foundations, a UI library, guidelines, and code. An operating system is a shared model for how an organization orchestrates practices and experience principles to deliver consistent brand-aligned products and services across every touch point. So what does this look like? Again, you have foundations, capabilities, governance, and delivery. But what do these actually mean? The foundations sets what experiences should be before anything is designed. Capabilities involve invisible services every experience relies on. The governance displays clear guardrails to enable faster and safer design decisions, and the delivery converts the brand promise into a lived experience. And so in short, the design system governs what users experience, while the OS governs how the organization operates. For us at Lloyds, scale is the product now. So I'm kind of going to take us back to when the rebrand was completed. And so what we had also presented before was why update a button when you could release a new feature instead. So that was the mindset that we were playing with before the rebrand. But now, once the rebrand was completed, all of those single focus, having one narrative, all of that was not the case. We were relapsing. And so here were some of the relapse patterns we were having. What is the priority? Do we have a business use case for it? Actually, it causes too many breaking changes. Is it worth doing? We need to do a lot of testing. And so is it even worth deploying that out? And there's a lot of need for coordination. So it's going to really be harder to roll out the change that we want. The key thing to remember, though, is an operating system isn't for perfect conditions. It's for messy ones. So what I'm going to go through now are those 4 aspects that I covered of an operating system and kind of showcase some of the work that we are doing currently. So when it comes to foundations, and a lot of when we're talking about AI as well, I saw this lovely quote, which is, if you automate a mess, you just get faster mess. And so at the core, what we're really trying to do is work on our 6 pillars: design language, a UI library, code repo, documentation, governance, and metrics, fully sort of established and connected across the board, not just having a really good Figma library, a bit of a good code base, and maybe just a bit of documentation. We want everything to be connected. So how do we actually go about doing that? And this is one framework that we're looking at doing. This is where at the start, you would be tactical with your sort of implementation. We would work on the foundations, and then we would scale those foundations, and that would lead to transformation. So let's look at some of the capabilities that we're trying to look at. If we take this journey or experience, which is we want to make a simple payment. Typically, you would go to the public domain, you would log in, and then you would do something like pay and transfer. But each team optimizes their own part of the flow, ignoring the experience. So the experience can be divided into 3 segments typically. So let's focus on each one. the tech stack. We can have multiple systems divided. So you can have a system for the public site, which is a CMS, a system for the secure site, which might be made from React, and you might have a system for internet banking, which may be a mixture of Java and CWAs, which stands for Client Web Applications. At an org structure level, you will have a public site team. You may have a team that is set up to deliver a feature and then it's disbanded, so it's only temporary. And then you've got multiple feature teams handling different things. At the feature level, you might have authentication, account management, and payment processes. So in short, in short, you do have a lot of people that are working in one experience, but it leads to a lot of disconnection. And so after the rebrand, we've attracted a lot of attention, but it's the experience that determines whether people stay. And so that's why, looking at the overall experience, we decided to organize our OS by journeys and products. At a very high level, when we're talking about journeys, we're talking about things that we're classifying as a customer lifecycle management. So things like make a payment, balances of transactions, etc. Those journeys have different experiences across different products or systems, whether that might be on the public side versus mobile banking. And then we have the brand layer, which is quite different for each brand. So what I'm going to now show is a few concepts that we are looking at, but it's more as an exploration of things to show what we're doing at Lloyds. First is the theory of extended collections. So again, tying everything down to journeys, not saying this is a final structure or architecture, but could we within a single collection host all of our journeys within there and then extend them for the pattern? So we are all as feature teams working towards one structure. When it comes to documentation, we might be using something like Figma Make or something to explore what that documentation should look like. We always have something like this where we have our global documentation layer. But what if we could do the same for the local documentation layer as well and make that journey based? So this is not filling out the components, but more focusing on, could we also show the components that we have within Figma or any other UI library and divide it by the journeys themselves. When it comes to metrics, we might also want to do the same at the product layer as well. So we have a system lens of how well the system is performing of the 6 foundations that I covered. You've also got the product lens, which is how each product is working. And then you've got the journey dashboard, which is then covering how that individual journey is performing. Again, linking in your UI library, the code base, documentation across the board. When it comes to governance, we are also looking at multiple frameworks. One of these is known as the Lloyds Design Assurance. So these are the 12 criteria that we have set that every journey needs to meet before it is gone live. A really nice thing to see is number 6, which is the solution correctly uses the design system components and published brand guidelines, which typically tends to get ignored. But this is really good when you have it as a framework and all the designers are meeting that criteria. But when it comes to the business end of things, not everyone needs to follow this. It's just what designers are following. This is where we want, where when design becomes policy, and in this case, business policy, alignment becomes effortless. So something that we're looking at is actually making any of these frameworks that we're deciding as a design team to be part of the business policies. So it's not a nice to have, it's a must have, because you have attached risk to the work that you're deploying. The last category that I'd covered was delivery. And all of the POCs and experiments that I showcased just before is actually part of something we call Kocan Labs. But actually something that our design director mentioned recently is ambition should not be limited by capacity. So I just wanted to showcase something as what we are going beyond and where I see the operating system going. If we took the concept of an ice cube and we wanted to transform it into any other object, typically a lot of people would say we would shave off the edges of the ice cube in order to turn it into a pyramid, but actually you would end up losing volume. What we actually want to do, and we all know, is simply you can unfreeze the ice cube, change its shape and mold it into a new shape, and then refreeze it. That way you don't lose volume. In the same way, we want to do that with the operating system as well, where we're using the foundations, the design system, and the journey experience to flow through organizational changes and flow through everywhere. Essentially, we want to be able to deploy a system that goes towards being able to be self-healing. So we're using things like AI, we're using other capabilities, but the end goal is where the system can actually take care of majority of the issues that we want it to take care of. And so this is more of a diagram of where things we are working into, which is the Kocan MCP. And this is trying to connect all of the concepts that we've talked about here. So the Kocan MCP linked in with the context window, which covers the documentation, the metrics, the guardrails. It links into multiple underlying MCPs from Jira to Figma, but also controlling multiple sub-agents. And the main three that we would like to focus on is the capabilities of auditing, migrating, and fixing issues. Now, that's a lot of technical talk, and it can feel quite heavy, and it's quite hard to digest. So I just wanted to put one sort of quote in here as a final thought. If there was anything you guys take away from here, what we are trying to do at Lloyds is build a system for Lloyds. It's a custom solution. But this quote really sits at the heart of everything that we are trying to do. And that is, you do not rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. And so what we're trying to do is identify where and how our current systems are performing and where we can improve them. And we want to get to a better place where the system takes care of most of the issues. So that's everything I wanted to cover. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well done. So if you have questions, thank you. If you have questions on that talk, fantastic talk, then please use the slide deck if you don't feel brave enough to ask live in the audience. Okay, so while these boys are getting mic'd up, 2 worlds, 1 system, and keeping your sanity. So today we're kind of looking at slightly large organizations. We got another big one here. I want to introduce Mahir. Welcome, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So one of the first things that we ever need to do when BPP goes and does a talk is we need to explain who BPP are. Most people don't know BPP, but BPP provides professional education. So this is really anything to do with education within your career. They provide apprenticeships, degrees, professional qualifications, as well as skills training to fit any part of that range. Also, just to kind of give a bit of context as to why we're doing this talk, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the history of BPP. It started in 1976 by Brierley, Price and Pryor, hence BPP, and it was purely a tutorial college for accountancy exams. Pretty dry. Fast forward 15 years, and they were quite successful. Oh, closer. All right. After 15 years, they were proving quite successful in their accountancy exams. They went and launched a legal training law school in 1992. And then fast forward another 15 years, and they become the very first for-profit company to receive degree awarding powers. After that, there's a spate of that degree awarding powers becoming more and more elevated, so that by 2020, they are granted indefinite degree awarding powers. It's at this point where things begin to move a lot faster for the business. So the business begins to acquire other education companies, starting off with SDO, which was a specialist, it still is, not was, a specialist apprenticeship training provider in IT. They also acquire Firebrand, which is specialist IT and digital training, as well as acquiring Digital Marketing Institute. That's digital marketing training. In 2004, they also acquired Buttercups. This expands the subject areas into pharmacy and primary care. But also in 2024, the business acquires Accender and Arbutus College, which are based in Canada, as well as CIC, which is in Australia. It keeps going. In 2005, only last year, the business acquires Sprott-Shaw. This is a long-lasting education company from British Columbia, and they're focused on healthcare, business, and early childhood education. Also last year, the business bought AIB, which is Australian Institute of Business, and they're the largest provider of MBAs in Australia. So there's a huge amount of growth in the space of just 5 years for the business. So only a couple of weeks ago, the business launched Lyceum. This is the parent company which helps to umbrella all of these brands together, but they're all still pretty disparate. In 2026, there's still more coming. There's no slowing down from what we've heard of the business in terms of acquiring more of these brands. But I need to take you back a little bit, back 2.5 years, and that's when I joined BPP. I'm not that special, but it's just a pivotal moment. This was the moment when BPP decided that they need to have a design system. I know, 2003, and they didn't have a design system. And one of the things that I had noticed is that we were developing a design system just for a single brand, just for BPP, but they've already bought SDO, they bought Firebrand, bought Buttercups, and I kept on questioning, like, was this ever really going to work for just one brand? Like, should we be thinking about, does it need theming? Does it need to work across multiple brands? And I kept on asking my directors, are you sure? Are you really sure? Because I kept on thinking, we probably want to set up all of that theming now. But directors are right sometimes. They were saying, no, just focus just on BPP. What we need to do is prove that we can make BPP more successful with a design system. So I stayed focused. Fast forward to early 2025, and the business, which had been going through a digital transformation, we were just getting to the point where, this is so oversimplified, but things like our CMS, PIM, data, ecom, and a hell of a lot more were getting into a much cleaner state. We had kind of replatformed a lot of these systems, and we were beginning to see that we could actually begin to translate this into those other brands that we've got or duplicate these systems. So the initial brands that we were looking at were some of these that you can see on the slide. And we needed to think about how we're going to get Scholar, our design system. I should have said that at the beginning. How was Scholar going to work with translating these brands to use our design system on our new platforms? So, and they all look quite different. They were using their graphic elements in so many different ways. So we had quite a bit of work to do. So working with brand and marketing teams, the product designers, as well as people who are focused on that group level understanding of these brands. Keep in mind that at this point, we didn't have a parent brand. So we were having to really think about what's that interplay between these brands really going to translate to. So whenever we think about theming, there is a real scale that we really need to think about. Initially, we had loads of talks at the beginning, but I'm just going to make this seem really linear. Initially, we were thinking about, what if we had no theming in the design system? What if our design system was just used with no other changes across all of these other brands? But pretty quickly, after doing some designs, we kind of figured out it was just going to be too homogeneous. It wasn't going to bring any of that flavor that the brands needed. Go to the other end. Oh, I did take out some text. Doesn't matter. Go to the other end of the scale. And this is kind of where I genuinely have dreams about theming, like having the theming run through every token and component so that the brand has full flavor running through it. But no, it's too much, it's too expensive. And thinking about the size of the business, the growth that they had was really, really quick. They weren't that established to really think that actually that's what we need to go after. So in the end, it was about what's just enough to give enough flexibility for these brands to have ownable character, just enough to help bring alignment to what was at the time 9 brands, but now 11, and just enough flexibility so that multiple teams and multiple disciplines can understand how the brand language really translates. So working with the brand team, they were designing up what the parent brand would look like at the time. So they were trying to figure out, well, actually, the parent brand, should that just trickle down through all of the brands that we've got? And we started off by looking at typography, color, and how we use that. And the brand team were really keen that we use exactly the same colors, run it through all of the brands, and we treat color on things like interactive elements, as well as other brand positions. So these are the colors. And so we've got a gradient, we've got red, orange, yellow, and these colors could not change between light and dark mode. And I was just thinking, you're gonna hate it, because something that we all know this, but like having worked with loads of designers and marketers, we all like variety. We want flexibility. And this was easily, I could see, just going to be too locked down. However, we are studious designers and we did our due diligence and we explored what was it going to really look like if we took those colors, those graphic elements, and translated it into some of our components that had high interactivity levels. Things like this, like our global nav, how's that going to really translate? You can see we've got lots of like ticks and crosses all over this kind of thing. We also looked at buttons, and then we were looking at primary buttons, and we were just getting accessibility errors galore. It was so difficult to try and work with such a locked down palette. But that's nobody's fault. We were just trying to kind of figure out what was really going to translate. We decided to go back a little bit, rethink things with the brand team, and we were thinking about what do we already have? Tokens, they come in. So we've got these lovely groups of tokens that we already had in Scholar. And what's that one at the bottom? We got brand tokens. But these brand tokens that we had set up originally for BPP were used in a relatively arbitrary way. We've got, loads of colors, but they do flex between light and dark mode, but they had no kind of purpose as to how they were being used. But this felt like it was the moment where we could apply variables to these brand tokens, and that can give the flavor for each of the brands. Working back with the brand team, I've gone and stolen some of their slides. We can now see that although the typography in the grid remains the same for all of the logos, running color independent to each brand really helps to bring that flavor and flexibility that's needed. Translate this into some of our components, and I've taken a testimonial card here. And you can see that with the brand token of brand 10 emphasis, for Accender, the one in the middle is using our cobalt color. If we wanted it to be for buttercups, it would take the green 110 color, and if it's for STO, it's yellow 110. So this really unlocked for us the flexibility that we were looking for that would translate going from one brand up to 11. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. It didn't work straight out the box. There was more unpicking we needed to do. So here's a quick screenshot of Accender using their cobalt color as a background element. Seemed to work really nicely, but no, the buttons aren't accessible on that. Drat, what do we need to do? And we found that with brand colors, on our color ramps, they don't always come from the same part of the color ramp. They are not always the same lightness stop. Nightmare. But I can't tell the brand team to change those colors. So what we needed to do was figure out how do we treat our interactive elements that will ensure that we meet accessibility standards. So we went to our buttons and our links, and we thought about having a high contrast monochrome mode. That was the thing which really helped to unlock those color pairings that allowed a brand to have enough flavor and character, but still meet accessibility needs that we were looking for. Lo and behold, it's working. Woohoo. So it was really down to the design system and the fact that we'd already established some tokens that allowed us to have that right context of conversation, the right conversation about context with the brand team. They were able to understand that we've already got a system in place that really allows us to scale so quickly for the business. This wasn't a case of going from one brand to having 2 themes in a design system. We're going from 1 to 11. We really need to think about the systemized aspect of this. So I'll pass over now to Mars, who's going to explain how all of this translated from design into dev. Oh,
Thank you very much. Wave at the back if you can hear me. Is that good enough? Cheers. Thank you. So I'll be looking at how we can feed our design system, the brand visual language, to the developers. There's a key part to this. As more brands join the design system, the communication model changes. It's ever evolving. But why is context important to the developers? Raise your hands if you've seen the USA, The Office. A few hands? Amazing. So there's an episode where Michael, he has his GPS on and he's trying to get to his destination. However, there is a river in the road that he is driving to. Without looking at the river and trusting his GPS fully, he drives straight into the river. But the story in this is that the context would have provided enough information to stop, right? But he continued driving, trusting the system fully. If we take this context into our world, into the user interface and how we translate those user interfaces to development, we find that sometimes the incorrect use of tokens, which can then mean that when it's translated to the developers, we can have misinterpretation of that design context. Additionally, Figma Make has become very popular recently. And without the right design context applied to those components, you can get AI hallucination as well with those Figma Make components. Also, if your tokens are not applying the wrong values, that also means when it's being translated to the developers, they may not also use the right tokens as well. When we look at the development mode as well, when there are misinterpretations of design context, that means the developers end up building the wrong thing, meaning QA engineers have to go in and find out what's wrong with the components and the behavior with those components as well. This increases maintenance time for getting things shipped. And even when they are shipped to production, we find that the misalignment in the layouts can cause your products to look unprofessional. And that doubts the overall quality of your products as well. So how can we look at the design intent that gets lost before we reach production and ensure that accuracy, efficiency, and autonomy comes into play in your design system? In addition to this, as a multi-brand design system expands, how can the visual context be sped up towards, sorry, was it too quiet? Okay, perfect. Is that better? Sweet. So in a multi-brand design system, the visual context is evolving faster than our ability to communicate it. The real challenge isn't tools, it's the translation from design context to development. I looked at our existing systems and found common ground between design and development. For example, our variables library uses the most common visual language that we have within our design system. And in contrast, in development, we have the tokens repo, which contains the visual language that we provide from design. Additionally, we use our styles library to apply those tokens to the components. And what we have in common between design and development is a component library, one that lives in GitHub, GitLab, and Figma for design. Also, that was grossly simplified as well. Cool. So I was looking at a communication model blueprint that we could use. It's still in process. It's not perfect, but I was looking at how we could use a JSON handler to sync between the variable library and the token repo. This way, we can ensure that any changes that occur in design get reflected in development, and any changes in development get reflected into design as well. In addition to that, we were looking at Figma's Code Connect allowing us to audit our components in design and in development to ensure that they are in sync from a documentation perspective, and from when Figma take those designs and understand if any of those components exist in GitHub. We also looked at using MCP servers as well, Model Context Protocol, so that any information that we're feeding from design and from development can be used within the MCP server to determine what the outcome should be. For example, if that's generating a new component or if that's auditing an existing component. I'd actually like to demonstrate an example of how I used the MCP server to generate a simple button. It's worth bearing in mind, it's not actually connected to a code repo because we're still in the process of doing it. Again, it won't be perfect. So if I can just show you the description of the video. So it's taking a link that we've taken from Figma, applying the right context to it. So I'm asking it to implement the button and ensuring that it meets the visual standards required. And as I then send it over, it will then gather the design context in Figma. It will look at the variables applied. It will look at min and max width, as well as any documentation that I have meta tagged into the component as well. By doing so, we can ensure that multi-brand tokens and component-based tasks can be implemented quicker. For example, if we are applying new tokens, creating new tokens in the multi-brand design system, we can then ask the MCP server to retrieve the information from the token base and plug it into the LLM client. In addition to this, we can audit existing components between design and development, seeing if they are applying the right variables in both areas, variables and tokens. And by doing so, we can save time and financial resource on design system related tasks. In addition to this, we're exploring how we can automate some of the documentation as well within the design system, and also seeing how efficient rapid prototypes in Figma Make can be produced as well. So here you can see it's produced the button, but if you work on a design system long enough, you'll recognize the really small details and differences between a component in design and development. So now, as you can see in the video, I'm asking for it to just double check between design and development to ensure that it's the same. If we get the results any minute now, it will now show you that it's made a few changes based on the comparison it's made between design and development. I want to leave a few takeaways. Tools like AI or MCP server don't replace collaboration. They encode it. They ensure that whatever is being produced in design has the right context and allows us to take claim responsibility for what we are producing in both design and development. I want to leave a few takeaways as well in terms of design files. We need to stop shipping design files. Stop sending design links to your developers and expecting them to know what to do within the Figma space. We should start shipping decision systems that make content explicit, because without context, your systems can still drive your products straight into River. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. Really good. Fantastic. I hope you got a lot of interesting questions. Put them in that form or keep them in your brain. We are going to move on to our next talk. This is the tokenization revolution, and I would love to welcome Vicky onto the stage.
Welcome to Tokenization Revolution. Before I get started, disclaimer, all views are my own and not of my employer. I have to say this. Thank you for listening. Next slide. So I'm going to tell you about how we went from the Wild West to design system Starship with tokens. Spoiler alert. A little bit about me. I'm Victoria. I work at JPMorgan and Chase for Spectrum Design System. I'm one of the design leads for Spectrum Design System. And Spectrum is a platform, an internal platform for asset management. We have over 120 apps and over 4,300 users globally. And this means we have to be really delicate about the way that we roll out changes. It poses a lot of risk. Everything has to be very, very well thought through. So with that context, let's begin. Oh, you can hear me breathing. Okay, so the problems that we were having a year ago, we had an identity crisis. Nobody really knew what even the true app background color should be. We had a problem with synchronicity. Design and code were dancing to two different songs. So we were definitely moving, but not in sync. We had accidentally created a digital hurricane. It was a sad storm of neutrals everywhere, and every design meeting felt like Groundhog Day. Why did this button look different? And what is this random shade of gray? So the problems piled up and a solution was needed. We were in a Wild West era. There was no sheriff in town, meaning that there was no single source of truth. We had language barriers. Figma said tomato, Figma said tomato, engineering heard reddish thing, and designers thought of a random hex code. We were living in a sea of grays. See, now I'm breaking up. It's because of this microphone. I wasn't expecting it. But we were living in a sea of grays, and there was no systematic design about it. It was more systematic confusion. Just like me, I'm systematic confusion. All right, we were living in a component anarchy. So Spectrum Design System has about 60 components, and they were all floating around individual app teams with different looks, different states. There was zero governance. Every team had their own unique solutions, so there were wild variations to how each type ahead or how each button looked. Design would interpret code with various levels of accuracy, and engineers would interpret designed code. Everyone was drifting further and further apart. So there was so many divergence and so many problems. And so we were living in isolated nations, right? There was unique solutions everywhere. For each similar problem, everyone had chosen to solve it differently. The Figma was like a building block, meaning that everyone was recreating these solutions and not reusing them like a design system should. Same challenge, different solutions meant that there was an increase of inefficiency and inconsistency across the product ecosystem. And so I want to show you an example of this. Now, because this is an internal product, I can't show you many screenshots. I'm sorry. I wanted to create really nice, crazy visuals. However, I'll just show you the modal component that we had. This was a published modal component in our Figma component library, and it had 4 different sets of tokens and a random hex code for some spice. So from this little example, it was clear to us that we couldn't just hack at the leaves, but dig at the roots of the problem. We were part of the problem. And you can imagine the snowball effect that this had on app teams, over 120 of them, and then at the end for the end users as well. There was no structural integrity for scalable and maintainable products. We were living in the dark ages, but the problem needs to be understood to be solved, right? So we audited just our neutrals at the start, just the grays, and no giggles, but we found over 50 shades. Now, we playfully at work called it the sea of grays. We couldn't call it the other thing. There was a proliferation of similar values, because this was just the grays. You can imagine the rainbow of colors that we were living in. But this proliferation of similar value means that consistency was lost, sanity was lost, and confidence in making design decisions was nowhere to be seen. Teams spent time trying to pick the right hex code instead of spending their energies on coming up with actual impactful design solutions. And so it was time for the revolution and an intervention. We had a strategic focus on 3 key areas: the color standardization, the token architecture, and component systemization. We didn't want to just build new components with all the new fancy Figma features. We wanted to redesign the infrastructure from the atoms to the elements. And we knew that for speed and efficiency, we wanted to lift and shift a color palette and find a token schema to fit the current implementation of code, meaning minimal restructuring, but could also flex and scale into any future improvements that we wanted to make. And we chose Radix to do this because it had built-in accessibility with proper contrast ratios, at scales to eliminate subjective color choices, and seamless light and dark mode. And so we come to the token renaissance, which was an age of rediscovery and rebuilding. We mapped Radix colors to our existing components. We identified inconsistencies, patterns, and gaps. And we defined the foundations based on the patterns that we saw. We weren't thinking about semantic roles yet, just the underlying structure. And this took a really, really long time, 60 components, various looks, loads of colors. But that groundwork set us up to later define roles and meaning in our semantic layer. Fellow history nerds know that after the Renaissance came the age of absolutism, which was an end of feudal fragmentation and the rise of central figures of nation states. And so behold, the new structure and architecture, a hierarchy that Louis XIV would have been proud of, if I do say so myself. So we had the foundational layer, which puts an order and name to our hex codes. We have the semantic layer, which gives them a purpose, which allows us to have multiple modes and theme support. And you can see the little before and after as well, the little mess that we had. This would get rid of fragmentation and align all of the teams around the purpose of the color. And here's a little bit of our secret sauce, which were bridge tokens. They are grouped intermediate tokens in the semantic layer of our variable system. And that means that a background color, for example, on the semantic layer, instead of referencing straight back down to gray 11 on the foundational layer, it references groups like neutral, danger, or warning. And that means that if we ever want to shift all of those colors, so if we don't want gray anymore, we want sage, we only need to change that one group and the entire semantic layer shifts automatically. And this means that we had finally some scalable maintenance built into the system. So lane switching magic, and by that I mean flexibility. One semantic token could have different values in different themes. At the foundational level, we defined hex codes to have a light color and a dark color for our modes, dark and light modes. And then on the semantic layer, we could flex for different teams if they have different needs, and that was for our themes. It means that it completely eliminated the need for manual change. The system handles everything automatically, leading to consistency and customization. Yay! The proof is in the modal, because all of those metaphors that I spoke about with the highways, the lanes, and the bridges, they need the vehicles being our components. So we rebuilt the entire Figma component library with all of the 60 components with the tokens built in. We wanted to utilize all the fancy new features, but there were two main goals. We wanted to be tokenized, of course, and connected to React. And so here is the old modal and a new modal in the dark mode and in light mode. The key difference here, apart from looking slightly better, is that the new modal has the same tokens, the same logic, 0 hacks, and 0 tears shed trying to make it built. It meant that designers no longer had to build two completely different screens for light and dark mode. It meant that engineers didn't have to re-implement because there was no connection between the two. We were both finally speaking from the same highway code. And so it kind of feels like we've tamed the Wild West, right? That was the Industrial Revolution. But we didn't want to just build components and be done with it and that's it. We needed for complete comprehensive infrastructure rebuilding. We wanted shared documentation, a long-term alignment. We wanted collaborative processes from the discussion to the handoff, which meant creating a shared language, meaning like, documentation that meant that we had the same property names in Figma as the property names in React, and the UX was involved in PR approval. We were all aware of what was going on. And that was like a city code, right? Some of the things that we involved into our everyday lives were token onboarding guides to encourage adoption. We had Figma to React translations documented and systematic update processes so that the entire team knew if there was a Figma update or if something was changing or adding. And all of that base work and that stable foundation that we built meant that we are finally ready for liftoff. I don't know if you saw in that modal component, that bright orange button. I am so sick of orange. I know my presentation is also orange, but I'm so sick of looking at orange. But that foundation means that we can finally evolve and adapt our user experience and our brand expression. And finally discover what the design system can become. We have flexibility to adjust with modes and themes without compromising the integrity of the system. And most of all, we want to live and evolve like an ecosystem with some nice words on the presentation. We want to be modular, defined, and flexible. And I know that this is a short presentation, but truly this entire thing took over a year. It's been most of my work at JPMorgan and Chase. So to recap everything and shorten it down even more so that you can kind of compartmentalize it in your brain, is that we started off in chaos with fragmentation and inconsistency with the little cowboy emoji. Then we industrialized with token infrastructure. And now we want to head to space, with system that can strategically evolve. We went from an operational challenge to a strategic advantage. And so, thank you very much for listening to my slightly anxious mess. You can now take your seatbelts off and remember that, design systems aren't just about the size. It's about how they're evolved when systematic improvements, one at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a community for therapy, whether you're on stage or off stage. So this is what we hear. It is good to be able to share our concerns and hear that we are not the only ones. So thank you, all of you, by the way. Really good talks, really lots of insights. I am going to go straight out and look at the audience and see how many people are looking away as I'm looking at them. Do we have anyone who's brave enough to be the first to pose the first question?
Hi, I'm Pavel. I'm a product designer. So when you're having a design system and that is leading to a system architecture and the infrastructure when you're building it, was one trade-off you are consciously made?
So what do you normally have to give up? The consistency, the autonomy, or
the speed, autonomy, or the consistency?
Okay.
Controversial, but I don't think it's any of them. The whole point of your design system is for you to accomplish a goal. That is why you're systemizing something. And hence why all of the designers at Lloyds are probably sick and tired of me repeating the same thing again and again. The process we always follow is construct, deconstruct, reconstruct. Without systemizing anything, figure out what is it that you want to achieve. Then you break that down into what are the parts you need to do in order to systemize it, and then reconstruct everything you want. So if your end objective is speed, then how do you actually break that down and then get you there? Is my personal belief and what I try to drill into all of the training sessions we do at Lloyds.
Excellent. Do anybody will comment on that as well? Salt to the gentleman in the white t-shirt. In that case, do you want to ask your second question as well?
Yeah.
Go for it.
And how do your team feels like? Is it supporting them or might be without having any polishing them?
Or how does the team feel
Yeah,
that I'm
right.
supporting them and not policing them?
Mhm.
How do you feel, guys? um,
Oh, this is going to get interesting.
so I think what I try to do is, and I think I was explaining it when we were talking in the break, a lot of the problems that we face, they're human problems. As much as we're looking at AI and everything else, it's about the connections that you're building. So I take that from how many people feel open that they can come and just message me or just, ask a question without any fear. And they might say, it's a really stupid question, but I want to ask you something. And I constantly say, it's not, you don't need to feel stupid in order to ask something. Just ask. It's fine. At least you're reaching out. Whether that's through any of the support channels we run weekly clinics where it's like half of the day is locked out for all of the designers where they can come in and book in a slot and come and talk to us. It could be we're running, or I personally run weekly Figma training sessions where we're trying to constantly upskill, but it doesn't have to be limited Figma. It could be AI, it could be other things that we're trying to do. And it's how much are they engaging? And it's really heart touching when I'm not having to go out and say this is how things are done. They're saying actually this is how it should be done, and we want to get your advice and take on it. And that's what we're trying to do. It's a cultural shift that you're trying to create. We're not trying to police anyone. We're actually here to support everyone.
Can I just add to that, if that's okay? I think, as you mentioned, like as a qualitative perspective, it's very important. But I also think from a quantitative perspective, it's important as well. Are the rate of detachments decreasing in your design system or increasing? If it's increasing, then maybe the components that they're using aren't fitting what they need. I also think the number of insertions in your design system as well play a part. And I think that can truly also reflect how the designers are feeling about your design system as well.
So you're saying it could be less policing and actually try to understand why they're not following?
Yeah, from a qualitative and a quantitative perspective.
Absolutely, makes sense. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Daivat, a product designer. Wanted to ask you both. You have shifted from rebranding to design systems and now operating system, correct? In your company. In your company, also you designed for one brand to now 11 brands, correct? The moment you start that, you have to go out of your comfort zone and you have to talk to the people who are non-designers, correct? In your thing, I think it's a company-wide thing. So there are a lot of cultural change also you had to bring in, correct, through design. So what was one core challenge you faced and how did you overcome it in that journey for both of you?
So the cultural change core challenge, company-wide?
So I think one of the, it's not going to be unique to just BPP, but the fact that we were going from 1 to 11 didn't really mean that there was a choice to not think systematically about this. The company definitely was not going to go down the route of let's give full theming to every single brand. It just wasn't going to happen. Like the speed that we need to be making this change really meant that the articulation that the design system gives us allows us to have the right kind of conversation or the right level of conversation. So for us, it made the conversations much easier. Because we knew that we were having to talk in a systematic way, not a case of, oh, can we just do it differently for that brand? That wasn't really on the table. It was actually trying to think about how are we going to do this to make a family of brands, which were basically all orphans before, but now they're being unified.
On our side, you said rebrand to design system to operating system, right? So there's actually two phases of challenges. Yeah. And the first part is no one actually understands what design systems are, which I was trying to describe. And so the thing that you're really trying to do is, or what we did as part of the rebrand is I personally banned the word design system because there's no point talking about it if you don't understand it. What we are focusing on is we are delivering a rebrand. It's one story, there's one focus. And then they bought into the process and be like, actually, this is what design system does. Hence, we need one. And so the challenge then transformed into now we need a design system that everyone can contribute to. And now everyone wants to use it. Everyone wants everything like yesterday. And now you're working at such a scale that you need to support the colleagues. You need to support different systems. You need to support different products in different ways. The challenge is now, how do you support everyone in a systematic way, but also make sure that we're making things work in a sustainable and scalable way. So that's a core challenge that we're constantly having to face, but also retain that connection, because it's not every day you get to have a rebrand and really show some core, value out of that. And we've earned a lot of trust. And we're in a very privileged position where it's top down, where all of the C-suite, everyone is aware of the design system, everyone is aware of what we have been able to deliver through the rebrand. Now the pressure is on, now deliver it throughout every touch point, every brand experience. And so it's a different level of challenge. It's a privilege to be in this position because not everyone gets to be here. But it's something as a team we're all thriving towards.
Thank you. So if you don't have that privilege and you kind of need to drive that adoption, and I'm actually going to come to you, Vicky, because obviously you're trying with tokenization as well to kind of create adoption. This is me assuming that you don't have that same privilege, and you can tell me that I'm wrong. But how did you drive adoption across the different teams to get them on board with the idea of the tokenization?
Design didn't need to be convinced. Design were crying out and desperate and drowning for it. So they were really happy. They could also see all of their friends using fun Figma features that we didn't have access to. So we didn't really need to convince them. We focused more on teaching them how to use theming, teaching them what tokens are, how to switch from light and dark mode. And this was only last year, so that was really just about teaching. The adoption struggle came from, unfortunately, the engineers. And sorry, we created a lot of guides for engineers that were using custom Bootstrap tokens. We were hosting a lot of sessions, talking to them about what the benefits of tokens are, saying, listen, you'll never have to input a random hex code again. Next time, you update all your packages, it'll be there, it'll be beautiful. You don't have to think about it anymore. So it's really just convincing them that we're all on the same team. We're not just trying to add tech debt. This isn't just tech debt. And making that kind of support accessible to them. So just making the time and being empathetic really helps.
Engineers can also be very empathetic, I've heard. So, I actually talked to someone about tokens today, and they said something actually really interesting. They told me that designers don't understand token, engineers do. And I was like, that's an interesting concept, elaborate. And what he meant was that the concept of tokens is a lot easier for engineers to grasp. However, the implementation and the need and using it, why it's important, that could potentially be a design issue more, that designers are more on board with it than engineering. But I thought it was really nice, kind of an opener where he said designers just don't understand tokens. I was like, that's interesting. So the concept, engineers, you will understand it. Designers, you all want it. That's a function already there, you already friends. Okay, how have you guys dealt with your adoption? Because you said you sort of going from, we've seen all the different 11 brands, and you're sort of trying to get a design system going. Did you find it a struggle in BPP to get adoption and the need for it? And how is that different in the last 2 years?
Well, the good thing is that we don't have separate design teams who need to take the adoption of our design system. Everything is still held centrally within our product design function, product and technology function. So we're on the very early part of the journey of really understanding how this theming is going to really translate into 11 and more brands. And I was chatting to Amir earlier, and I was saying, I really do think that at some point in the future, we're going to be asked to have even more theming, flavor available in the design system, I could really easily imagine that we're going to be asked to allow theming on typography or animation and interaction. So we have basically started this journey in the lightest way possible, but knowing that the scale that we're bringing by allowing theming in our design system is also scalable in the other axis, if you will. Like, it will scale for more brands, but it can also scale with the type of theming that we can do. We've just kind of built confidence and instilled it within the business that the design system can do this, and that it's systematic, and that it's reducing design and tech debt. I'm hearing the same things. Design tech debt. Design tech debt is just lots and lots of money.
Just that.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Any more brave souls? Here we go. Oh, we got pointing in this direction and over here. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see you behind there.
It's me. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, go for it.
Great. Sorry, now I'm behind a pillar over here. So I'm really curious. Obviously, you're all from large enterprise orgs that have a huge array of requirements that shaped what you did. But I assume that you probably did quite a lot of research deciding how you wanted to implement these and to tackle each of those problems. If you could wave a magic wand and start again from scratch, what would be your ideal setup and tech stack attached to that and ways to work? It's quite a large question. I appreciate so.
The magic one, go for it.
I can attempt to answer it. The rebrand looks like such a success to everyone, and I tried to hint it in the config talk as well. That was actually 2 years in the making, literally. And it started with a lot of small POCs to understand each individual problem and how to solve it, which one of them just lasted a year on how do we implement design tokens within the native app itself. Was we tested it out somewhere else in a third-party app, prove that, and then say, okay, this is how we're going to bring it in. It really takes a lot of time to actually know what you want to do, and it felt like it was a story that everything was just falling in place, where it's like we did research into dark mode, dynamic type, all of the accessibility, the colors, how we would architecturally set things up, and then it's, oh, there's a rebrand, we need to deliver it in 9 months. Oh, well, the past 2 years we've actually been doing parts of it, and now everything's coming together. It's hard to say what the ideal tech stack or everything else would be, because the problem with an enterprise level system is you're not working in a greenfield environment, you're working with a brownfield environment. So it's not that it was my choice to use X, Y, Z. It was, how do we get from where we are today to where we need to get in the most simplest way? And it's then, again, the formula of construct, deconstruct, reconstruct is used in many levels. So it's almost, if that's where we need to get to, how can we work backwards and get there?
Makes sense. You're solving a specific problem, so it makes sense.
Sorry?
I said it makes sense. You're solving a very specific problem. So.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you. Did you want to comment on that as well, anybody? Go for it, Vicky.
So Spectrum design system originally had no UX coverage at all. It was is this even on? It is on. I'm just maybe deaf, but it had no UX coverage. All of the decisions were made by engineers, which were being encouraged by, like the senior leadership. And so we inherited a lot of problems, well, not problems, but very isolated solutions and isolated patterns that were not systematic, because it was all kind of go, go, go. Like, let's unify all these applications into one platform. There's money in this now. We just need to put it together. And as long as it's on one platform, that's fine. And we've inherited so many constraints from that. And I don't blame the engineers whatsoever. I work with a brilliant team, but for design, it means that now when we want to, we're tokenizing the rest of the system, not just colors now, but when we want to tokenize something, anything that brings any uniformity across, breaks the UI screens of app teams that perhaps can't upgrade to the latest packages immediately. If there's any like pixel differences, it's panic. And so I guess I just wish that UX was valued a little bit earlier on, so that we didn't have so many constraints right now. This is like a therapy session. You're right.
You've been therapized.
But yeah, same with the tech stack. I don't really. I'm happy with what we have. I think the engineers are really happy with what we have. It really fits our needs. It's just that it's all so delicate, and I just kind of wish I could just flush the past away and kind of just like, you know, start it over.
Excellent. Thank you. We had one question here, and then we have another question here. And then we have another question at the back, and we have another question. Oh, we got lots of questions. Let's go. Go for it.
Hi, I'm an engineer, and I have a question about tokens.
Come on. Come on.
Sorry.
Let's go for it.
You had a slide with for the colors where you had Victoria with the foundational name, and then that mapped to like a semantic name. So I've seen that before, where it's like the color is fire brick red or something, and then that maps to destructive, and then everyone understands in the system we use that for delete buttons or something like that. But when you have like shade of grey number 32 and you call it heather grey or something, but what do you ever get stuck where, what do I call this? What is the semantic name for this thing that actually is meaningful? Because I've been in a situation where it's like we call it modal background, but then it's like you might as well just apply heather grey to the component. So what's the value of the semantic layer, and how do you name these things? Because that's always the hardest, isn't it?
That's a really good question. We spent a really long time trying to create the right structure for us that could flex, but could also fit into what we have. We have quite complex components that I've never seen anywhere else. What we did was we studied a lot of other design systems that kind of had similar components to ours and had a look at their structure. And there's very different ways in naming colors. So you could have component specific tokens that are great, but they are so specific that you end up with just like a stupid amount to maintain. And then you could have ones that are that point to a specific UI feature element, so borders, backgrounds. That's what we went with. We said, okay, we'll pick the colors for backgrounds, we'll name what kind of background it is, and simplify it in that way. So all borders can be bold or subtle. All backgrounds are either high elevation or low elevation. And then, you know, we teach the design system what elevation is, because genuinely no one had a clue. So by spending, and again, this took a really long time, by spending all the time auditing everything and seeing where these different grays are, and then studying design systems to see how they name things and being like, okay, well, this could fit. This would create 500,000 new tokens, so maybe not. And it's a lot of testing. And every design system is different. So every design system will have it slightly different. We really like, for example, Atlassian. That's a really good one to look into. But yeah, it's so far so good. It's a really, like, it's a tightrope between flexibility and control that we have to balance. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Excellent. While you're there, pass the mic on to the gentleman right in front of you. Go for it.
Hey, folks. So I've actually got two.
Oh,
that's okay.
This one, look at him. Come on.
Yeah. One's a bit more of a softball, so I'll do that one first. How do you create spaces or capabilities to help encourage adoption and evolution while maintaining governance?
Do you guys want to start with this one?
I can say something
Go for it.
about that. I think transparency is the key, allowing a space for your designers as well as your developers to own up to moments where they feel like, I'm not sure what to use in this situation, I'm not sure how to design this or build this. I think having that open door space pretty much allows them to solve the problem before it becomes a problem, if that makes sense. And I think that way you can kind of see the shift in the mindset and the way people react to certain updates, even in the design system. I've had scenarios where I've put an update out and people are like, oh gosh, not another update, I can't handle this. But then some people will be like, great, I really needed this. And you can tell by the way people react to those updates that you have in the design system as an indication for how well it's doing. I hope that answers the question.
Anyone else want to give that a go? Vicky?
We've had to implement SX props in our components, which is like an escape hatch, because there's always going to be an edge case that just doesn't fit into the system, but that particular team on that particular screen just absolutely need it. So there's an SX prop to open the component up and they can customize it to hell and back. But ultimately, we have to look at things. We're now beginning to train the entire team to think systematically and think, okay, this would solve this team's problem in this feature request. But does it actually? But if we do this change, and we talk as a team, then we're going to have to change this. What about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And I think that so far people have been quite receptive because they know ultimately if they really need it, they can just, tell us to go away and we'll just use the prop if you're not going to listen to us. So again, it's about meetings, it's about talking to people, but giving them an ultimate kind of little escape hatch if they really need it. But we spend a lot of time with people discussing things and letting them into our world a little bit. So that empathy really makes a difference.
Go on then.
It's really beautiful here where we have a really nice split of language and system. So Vish leads the design language squad and I lead the design system. And so every week we have design clinics that run and anyone can book a slot. And the idea is, let's say you have a change request and whether it's a token update or it's a whole new component or anything else, Vish would look at it and the team would look at it from a language perspective of creativity, brand expression, the experience, and the system designers would look at it from implementation, the text restraints, etc., and what the effects might be. So we're not here to police and to just say, oh, you already got a component that does that, can you just reuse it? But actually genuinely empathizing with what the actual use case is. And then what we are getting used to is all of the designers filling out something we call the component blueprint. So it's almost to the level of documentation that you would normally do when you're actually creating something and it's going to go out live. You're bringing that ahead. So everyone hates me saying this, but what is the multi-brand application of this component change you're making? They start thinking about that before they bring it to the clinics. So it already gets everyone to think about all of the requirements, all of the hats when they bring it. And it makes our jobs a lot easier to say, okay, this is how we are now going to implement it through the contribution framework. So again, it's, by having language and systems work together, we're allowing for creativity, but we're also making sure we use the system correctly. So that's what we try to do.
Beautiful.
Cool. The other one is a bit of a crossover. So AI and design system.
Oh, come on.
So as AI is being encouraged and integrated in our ways of working in lots of different ways, how are you creating spaces for creatives to produce and product and engineers to learn and experiment while framing the design system as the dependency? So in short, we know AI is being introduced in lots of different ways in our ways of working in companies in lots of different areas. How can we, or how are you guys encouraging people to engage with it as an additional tool while maintaining a level of acceptance for the fact that we need the design system to be the king of the hill and not just to create random mess? Yeah, I mean, there's different levels of it, but yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I think, sorry, you're about to talk,
No,
weren't
no,
you? Sorry, buddy.
yeah.
I think at the moment, we're obviously seeing that real infancy of AI at the moment, really trying to figure out what part can it play in our, product evolution cycle. So at the moment, it feels like AI plays a really pivotal part in either speeding up process or allowing us to prototype more or better or quicker. But at the moment, it doesn't feel like it's at the point where it's giving us enough confidence that it can be completely integrated with a design system that we're thinking that that's the right step to take right now. But I don't think it's far away. We have numerous they're not design spikes, I don't know what we call them, but like we take moments to really just go and explore what's the art of the possible. And it's not necessarily related to a business problem. It's more just a case of seeing what's out there, what can we use, how do we think that's going to impact our business and our teams. And at the end of the day, because we are a for-profit business, it all comes down to kind of some kind of margin that we have to really look at. It's horrible really talking about money, I know, but if we kind of bring it back to that, it makes it much easier when you want to talk to the directors about it. So I think at the moment, confidence levels are ever increasing around AI, but it's not at the point yet where we've got enough confidence that it's something that we need to completely integrate into our design system and all of our products, but it's really not that far away, I don't think.
Yeah.
We actually, for us, it's encouraged adoption and strengthened people's confidence. We have also got a lower resource of UI engineers and front-end developers in asset management, and with the MCP server that our design system now has, people that are less experienced with front-end engineering can put together UI or see a Figma file and have AI help them build that screen. Whereas before, they'd maybe misuse a component or need loads of support from us, or raise loads of tickets and feature requests because they're just not sure what they're doing. So it's really supporting us, and I don't see it putting us at risk of being overshadowed by it. We also have a very slow process at JPMorgan of new features coming in. So we don't have any Figma Make or anything like that. So far, it's just supported us with the chore side of design, recording meetings or automating some stuff that really took way longer, but isn't really what we want to spend all of our time doing. I can't believe I'm speaking positively about AI on stage. But personally, it's in my personal life right now, it's not a danger to us.
There's two things. One is from a system perspective, I like to look at horizons. So we've got what we need in short term. So like today, let's say 6 months down the line. So that's kind of like what we need to do to make things work. That's like day-to-day basis. But that's why we use something what we call Concurrent Labs to try out the experimentations that we want to do. So working very closely with the engineers or other designers to start experimenting with things. That kind of leads to things like, trialing out Figma Make, the MCP servers. Can we make our own MCP? Can we start building out sub-agents, etc.? The other thing I'm going to touch on is the human aspect of it. I think we all know when we're opening LinkedIn or anything, the algorithms are almost set to the same thing. We all read, I'm a new designer that has never experienced AI before, and here's the steps in a long article to go and learn. And I think a lot of designers can feel like we're falling behind. Like, look, there's a whole new model. Like, how do you use this? What is Claude? What, you know, like it confuses everyone. And something I try to do through the training sessions is like explore some of these concepts and take the designers along. It's like, you know, we're going to take step by step. But by the way, I'm not an expert either. I'm learning myself. And here's a little thing that I've learned. I'm just sharing that on. And a little amazing story I can touch on is just to be having this encouragement of here's cursor, here's how you do things, has led to a designer in our team to go and try out something. I think it's M15 little device, and now you can see like someone's used it to see money going into their account every day or something. Like, it's crazy how much one little thing can inspire other people to do. So I think it's important to just be human about how it does feel scary and everything, but actually once you get used to it and you dabble your feet into it, it becomes a bit like an addiction, and I can't stop vibe coding. So, you know, it's something that we're trying to encourage that people feel comfortable to do. And it's AI is not the problem, it's the people that will use AI and how you're going to use it. And yeah, just be good with it.
I think also part of the problem is the attitude towards it. So, I mean, touching a little bit when you say, so for us, where I work, we try to create a space where people feel confident and happy to use AI. As in, there is that kind of paradox of, if you're using it, does that mean that I'm not doing my actual job? Do people think that I didn't create this because I used AI to do this? Or if I don't tell people that I use AI, are they going to kind of disregard my work even more? So I think it's just creating a space where you say to people, it is absolutely perfectly fine, and you should experiment with AI, as you say, like whether it's a lab space or whatever. But I think it's kind of just like, if you have a design team, you need to allow your designers to kind of feel not confident about it and just using it and see what it's like. So they don't sort of think that they have to use it in secrecy and then all of a sudden know all about it. We had a question over here as well that somebody had there. There we go. And then where are we with timing? We have, after that, we probably have one more question. So let's see. Oh, yes. You claimed the last spot. I saw you. Go for it.
Oh, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm also a software developer. Chap over there. Developers don't tend to care about design or beauty or kind of stuff like this.
I'm glad that it didn't stop there.
Sorry.
For those of you who didn't hear, he said developers don't care about design systems.
Yeah, they don't, realistically don't care. I think it was you, Vicky, that mentioned kind of it was difficult getting that buy-in from developers. And so, like, as a developer, what can I do to help you there? Like, as a lead dev, how do I get my team to care about design? Sorry, this is awful. And yeah, what's the best way for us to collaborate going forward?
That's a great question. Did you hear that, the rest of you developers? That's the kind of questions you should be asking.
That's also my best friend. Thanks for the question. Yeah. What's the best way to get developers to care about UX? I'm still learning that myself, to be honest. Yeah. Being best friends with one helps. I think it's little steps every day, and I'm actually grateful for my engineering team that I sit with every day. There was a choice of, sitting with like people that are in your app team, sitting with your end users, sitting with your engineers in the office. I spend a lot of time around my engineers, and even the software lead sometimes will misunderstand something and ask me questions like, but we made these design decisions 5 years ago. Why do we need to change them again? Was that the wrong decision then? Are you saying that all the previous designers were wrong? And it's just a completely different, I think, mindset of like wrong decision, right decision. This is implemented wrong. This is how it should be implemented. And their like problem solving mindset at work that kind of needs a little bit of like a softening every day, little by little, of understanding that things can be pretty, and like, why shouldn't they be? Like, why not just treat yourself a little bit to maybe like not a neon orange, but like maybe a subtle blue? But it's not a very technical answer, because I'm still figuring out myself what the best way is of showcasing the value of UX. I think that we're trying different things with hero screens of like, look, this is this application screen, but it's using different components from Radix or Atlassian. And look how different it looks. Look how you instantly know where to click, and it saves time. The users will be less likely to make mistakes. It depends who you're speaking to, of course, because the stakeholders will think about the money saved and the mistakes being, less frequent. The engineers will think about, how hard do I have to work to do this for you? Will you leave me alone after this? So I don't have an answer. I'm still working at it. I think we keep saying empathy, and just little conversations every day of trying to widen our horizons. I have to be empathetic to them and to their experiences, and I have to be very delicate in the choices that I make, because then they will have to support the engineers that come with support tickets about all the changes that they've implemented. So I have to come and understand their perspective, and they have to understand mine, which is that if you put a dark grey text in front of a dark grey background, you might not be able to read it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll stop yapping.
So how do you guys get along with each other, engineers, designers in your team? What's the key? Just very quickly.
Have the key? Please tell me.
Give us a one sentence.
I can go. I think the key word for me was empathy, understanding that developers don't always have the time to look at your fancy decisions and to give their feedback or 2 pence on it. It's just the reality of it. But what I find usually is when you have like maybe one-to-one time with a developer, shout out to the developer I work with, Stoyan. We have a 3 Amigo session, which includes the BA, me and myself, and developer. But that's where we have the time to sort of discuss it in a more deeper contextual level, rather than finding a time in a stand-up to explain your UX decisions. They have tons of other things to think about. So my keyword was empathy, and that was not a sentence. I'm sorry.
I know it wasn't, but it's okay. We like it. Thank you. Let's see. Can you do one sentence?
I'm going to say no.
Don't worry. I'll stop you.
Yeah. I'm going to say developers do care about tokens and what to do, but I feel personally, my experience with them, they are more concerned with the process afterwards, which is breaking changes and the level of testing that needs to happen. That is why in my talk I was trying to say that is the most blockers why they don't want to change anything, right? And so what I try to do is reframe things. So rather than selling design tokens, I said, and including to the PO and stretching it out, do you want dark mode? And if you do, you need design tokens. And it's like making it very simple, and sometimes reframing it as simple as that, even though it sounds ridiculous, actually gets the job done faster, rather than trying to create a deck of business use cases and yes, here's what you get without it. So yeah, try to reframe the problem.
Thank you. That was the longest sentences I've ever come across. I because of that, I'm actually just going to comment on this as well. I actually think that it's a little bit how people think about AI, whether it's going to be the best thing that happened to you or it's going to ruin the world. Because I think designers and engineers have a little bit of a system thinking versus outcome thinking. So as an engineer, you think about like, I care about the technology, I care about this works. As a designer, you might be more focused on what is the outcome of this happening, how is this going to impact end users. If we learn to understand the differences between system thinking and outcome thinking, we can have a lot better conversations, and it actually applies both in that relationship and how we think about AI. That's my 2 pence. Only because I promised the lady in the back give us a super quick question, and I'm going to tell these guys now. It's going to be quick, short answers, and if it's not, I'm going to look at you really strongly. You're going to get a stern look from me, and if you worked with me, you know what my stern look looks like.
Design system engineer here. And I noticed you guys have named your design systems. Was this strategic in positioning your design system as an internal product, or was it a result of your redesign? And what was some of the benefits of doing that?
Yeah, it was about positioning it internally. BPP is a really annoying an acronym to try and like say quickly, and then when you put design system on the end, suddenly it's really long and quite complicated to explain. So, and especially if you acronymize design systems, you got BPPDS. So that was really, really bit of a nightmare, and we didn't have the name Scholar for our design system straight. I'm going to get a stern look.
Oh yeah, it's coming. Don't worry, I'm building up.
All I need to kind of say is that like saying design system sounds more complex. And while we abstracted the name to give it Scholar, that really meant that we could say, let me tell you what it does. Let me bring you on the journey, rather than just dropping design system in, which I think lots of people think design, fluffy, system, architecture. I don't know what that means. So I actually think we need to take the name design system away from it.
I don't agree with that at all. We can't change the name on the meetup. So yes, very quickly.
I wasn't there, I don't know.
Wow, that's how it's done. Kish?
I was there and I know. The whole reason why we've called it Concaro OS, many might not know, is Concaro is actually the name of the first horse. Yeah, I believe in the advert. I'm going to get a stony look from Vish if that's incorrect. But it's the first horse's name. And it's part of the rebrand, and it's the story. So as soon as you hear Concaro, knowing that story, it's to bind everyone together towards one purpose. So it's actually linked to the rebrand.
Amazing. That's beautiful. I like that. That's very good. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions. But however, there is networking. And do you know where you do a networking? You ask questions. So that's where you're going to bring it. So basically, before we go, I want to give some quick thank yous and shout outs. Obviously, thank you to all the speakers. Fantastic talks. Thank you so much. I want to give a big thank you to Lloyds for hosting us. It's been brilliant. And thank you to the team that's been serving drinks and food. Fantastic. And obviously to the tech team that's helped us throughout the night. Thank you to YLD for continuing supporting us and allowing me to be here talking and inviting friends. We are obviously looking for people to give talks and to host. So please hit us up. Follow us on LinkedIn so you know when the next DSL is happening. It is happening. We are in really good talks. We are just looking at finalizing some dates and stuff. So that will come out very soon. Okay, so I think I said thank you to everybody. The last people to say thank you is obviously to you guys, to the community, to anyone has ever been to Design System London. Thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for continuing supporting us. We hope we'll see you again. And now let's take the rest of your questions and some networking and just hang out a little bit and talk Design Systems. Thank you. That's it.